Hello race fans and welcome back for more round one action of the Next Gen Diecast Cup Series. Let's go ahead and introduce the 6 drivers of Group 3. Driving the number 1 Gear Wrench Chevrolet, Kurt Busch. Driving the number 10 Smithfield Ford, Aric Almirola. Driving the number 17 Sunny D Ford, Chris Buescher. Driving the number 19 Bass Pro Shops Toyota, Martin Truex Jr. Driving the number 22 Pennzoil Ford, Joey Logano. And driving the number 48 Ally Chevrolet, Jimmie Johnson. We will have 6 races today, and the top 3 drivers in the standings will advance on to round 2. For race number 1, Aric Almirola and Jimmie Johnson in row 1. Martin Truex Jr. and Joey Logano line up in row 2. And then in row 3, it's Chris Buescher and Kurt Busch. Here we go, gate drops, and we are racing here in Group 3. Good battle for the lead. Some contact between Johnson and Almirola. Johnson makes a run coming out of 4, but it'll be Almirola winning the first race over Johnson. Truex Jr. rounds out the top 3, and then it's Buescher, Logano, and Busch. Some contact going into turn 1 between the 10 and the 48. And then watch Johnson able to make a run through 3, and at the exit of turn 4, a little contact, but he could not make the pass as Almirola will win the race and pick up the full 10 points. Good start. Almirola will lead over Jimmie Johnson by 4 points. Martin Truex Jr. down in 3rd. He's got 4. Chris Buescher picks up 3. Joey Logano has 2. And Kurt Busch with 1. The drivers are lined back up for race number 2. Jimmie Johnson and Martin Truex Jr. will start in row 1. In row 2, it's Joey Logano and Chris Buescher. And then in row 3, Kurt Busch and Aric Almirola. The gate drops and we are back racing. Good start for Johnson. Truex dives underneath him and takes the lead. He's spinning going into turn 4. Truex leads in reverse. Coming down to the line, he'll win the race. And then a photo finish between Johnson and Logano. Johnson takes second by less than 2/100ths of a second. What a wild ride that Truex Jr. went on, coming out of turn 2 and all the way down the mid-straight. But then Ricky Bobby style winning the race in reverse. And then Johnson just barely beating out Logano for second. And then coming out of turn 4, Buescher up onto the wall, gets forced out into the grass. So a DNF for Chris Buescher in race 2. The standings after 2 races, Martin Truex Jr. into the points lead. He's got 14. Aric Almirola and Jimmie Johnson tied with 12. Joey Logano back in 4th. He's got 6. Kurt Busch in 5th with 4. And then Chris Buescher has 3. For race 3, Martin Truex Jr. and Joey Logano will start out front in row 1. In row 2, it's going to be Chris Buescher and Kurt Busch. And then in row 3, Aric Almirola and Jimmie Johnson. And the green flag is back out. Good battle going into turn 1. It's going to be Truex Jr. leading. He's sideways. Buescher goes around him and takes the lead. Here they come out of turn 4. Truex Jr. making a run, but it'll be Chris Buescher holding on to take the win over Truex Jr. Kurt Busch will round out the top 3. Truex Jr. sideways all the way down the mid-straight, allowed Buescher to go around him. Johnson gets into Almirola, which forces Almirola into the grass. And then a very close finish between Buescher and Truex Jr. So good race. Disappointing run for Almirola with the DNF here in race 3. He'll fall outside of the top 3 now. Truex Jr. still leading the way with 20. Johnson in 2nd with 14. Buescher into the top 3. He's got 13 points. Almirola is in 4th with 12. Then you've got Joey Logano with 9 and Kurt Busch with 8. Race number 4, Joey Logano and Chris Buescher. Starting out front in row 1, Kurt Busch and Aric Almirola will start in row 2. And then in row 3, it's Jimmie Johnson and Martin Truex Jr. And here we go for the second half of Group 3, race number 4. Logano leads out of turn 2. Buescher making a run. Here they come through 3 and 4. Buescher's sideways. It's going to be Logano winning. And they stack up behind Buescher. Buescher does take 2nd. And then it's Busch, Johnson, Truex Jr., and Almirola. Chris Buescher doing everything he can to make a run on Logano. As they come out of turn 4, he gets sideways, and that kind of blocks Kurt Busch, and then the rest of the field stacks up behind him. So big win for Joey Logano. He moves into second place in the standings. Truex Jr. still up top. He's got 22 points. Logano and Buescher tied with 19. Then we've got Jimmie Johnson in fourth with 17. Aric Almirola has 13, and Kurt Busch has 12 with just 2 races to go. The drivers are set and ready to go for race 5. Chris Buescher and Kurt Busch will start in row 1. In row 2, it's Aric Almirola and Jimmie Johnson. And then in row 3, Martin Truex Jr. and Joey Logano. And here we go for race 5. Good start for the inside lane. Buescher leads. Kurt Busch on the outside with a big run. He's to second, and he's going to make the pass for the lead. Here they come out of 4. Kurt Busch will win over Chris Buescher. Aric Almirola third. Then it's Johnson and Logano. And Martin Truex Jr. is upside down in between turn 3 and 4. What a battle for the lead coming down the mid-straight as they just about went 3 wide. Kurt Busch able to take the lead in turn 4, and he would go on to win the race. But Martin Truex Jr. ends up upside down in between 3 and 4. Watch Jimmie Johnson. He gets up on the wall, hits the barrier. That turns him around. And then some contact between Johnson, Truex Jr. and Logano ends up turning Truex Jr. upside down. The TMS safety crew there with him now to check on him and work on getting that car turned back over and ready to go for the final race. It's a huge win for Kurt Busch in race number 5. Kurt Busch into the top 3 after being in 6th place most of the day. He's into the top 3. Chris Buescher leads with 25 points. Martin Truex Jr. and Kurt Busch tied with 22, just 1 point ahead of Joey Logano sitting outside of the top 3. Jimmie Johnson just 2 points out. He's got 20. And then Aric Almirola with 17 points. 1 race to go to decide which 3 drivers will advance on to round 2. Kurt Busch and Aric Almirola will start in row 1. In row 2, it's Jimmie Johnson and Martin Truex Jr. And then in row 3, Joey Logano and Chris Buescher. The gate drops for the final race. Kurt Busch will lead coming out of turn 2. Jimmie Johnson making a run. He gets into Kurt Busch going into 3 and turns him around. Coming down to the line, it's going to be Kurt Busch over Jimmie Johnson in reverse with less than 0.3 of a second separating the top 3. Jimmie Johnson would get into Kurt Busch going into turn 3, spin him around, and then Kurt Busch in reverse cuts over in front of Jimmie to throw the block and hangs on to win back-to-back races. And Kurt Busch goes from last place in the standings at the end of race 4 to winning here in Group 3. So Kurt Busch takes Group 3 with 32 points. And then look how close this was. Chris Buescher and Jimmie Johnson tie with 26 points, and they both finished just 1 point ahead of Martin Truex Jr. Disappointing day for Martin Truex Jr., missing out of the top 3 by just 1 point. Joey Logano finishes 5th, and then Aric Almirola in 6th. So it's Kurt Busch, Chris Buescher, and Jimmie Johnson that will be advancing on to round 2. Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano, and Aric Almirola have been eliminated. Thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you back here next week. Take care.